Oh, hello. Welcome back to Route 40 Russ. This time, we catch the Pontiac on fire again. Thrice times. We get power brakes and brake pedal assembly installed. We got vacuum lines hooked up. We start doing brakes. We replace lines. We're flaring copper. We're doing all sorts of stuff. We got wheel cylinders out because we got all sorts of problems that I foresaw from the get-go. But thought just maybe today would be my day, and I was wrong. So enjoy what we got. It's a disaster. I just got back from a car show. Took the CJ5 out there, and yeah, I lost to a brand new 4-door Wrangler stock, but it had stickers on it, so that's cool. But I did not come home empty-handed. Let me show you something. Yeah, it's a Jeep sunburn right there, boys. It hurts something fierce, let me tell you. So I figured it's a good opportunity to kneel in this gravel and drill all the holes for the new brakes on the Pontiac. So I'm gonna move really slow and say some choice words while I get that done. But I gotta make progress, you know, because these days can get away from you, and I want to drive the car. You just saw last video, this thing is running top notch, and I'm thinking with that low end torque that these straight 8s are touted for, this thing's gonna be a burnout machine. That's what so I need good brakes, maybe line lock it, I don't know, but anyway, I need a brake pedal in order to have good brakes. So let's get started on that. Sit right there. See that bolt? See how it's all crooked? I'm gonna go inside the car and straighten it up. Can you put this nut on it? Okay.
Put the nut on now?
Yep.
Which way does it go in?
Whichever way it goes on.
Okay.
Oh, I can't drill that 4th bolt. Because of the steering column. But we're 3.5 inches on center. I can figure that out. Shut up, chicken! What's a can of Stoker's? 2.5 inches. Cool. Sharpie's dead. Oh. Doesn't look very centered up, but let's get the plasma cutter out and catch a car on fire. Now the whole reason we rebuilt the carb and got it running right is so we can move it closer to the barn, so we don't have to use a 220 plasma cutter with a 110 adapter on an extension cord. So it might not work so great, but since I never finished the wiring so I could fire it up and move it easier, so the plan's falling apart. So let's just see if this thing will eat the way she is. We'll dip her in the ketchup, make it happen. Ground there. already catching on fire. Splash some water in there. Let's just burn it down. My legs were on fire. Why did they make this so difficult? Got it. Hey, fun Pontiac fact. This is the second time we've caught this car on fire. Something's not lining up. All right, boys. Just calm down. Calm down, everybody. Fire? I know what you're thinking, that I'm a bit of a hack, and you're right. But I will say, I'm not worried about how big I made that hole, because the booster and the pedal assembly's got that big bracket, and that's kind of plating it, right? Huh. Look at that, I saved the barbed fitting off that Jeep intake. I'm a clever boy. I like support this with a square. Yeah. Now, I don't know if something's still burning or if that's fire extinguisher dust. Let's just pretend it's dust. Oh. Oh. Sure that's good to breathe in. Ah. Ah. I replaced you with this thing, but it's not as good. So I got two bolts holding. I got two bolts holding this on, but it is bolts. I just need you to shove it over for me.
Like that?
Can you shove it over some more?
That's as over as we're getting.
Can you give her a mighty shove or something? Oh yeah, you're doing it.
Hello! Help is on the way, dear. Oh, it's doing things.
Huh?
It's doing
Ah. Got the Pontiac on fire.
Did you?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
I was plasma cutting with a brake booster. The car's got 1/4-inch brake lines on her. That master cylinder is set up with 3/16. So we just need to get some different things for the master cylinder, and I probably need to go to O'Reilly's and look for a barbed fitting that'll pipe thread into this intake so I can run a vacuum line straight to the brake booster. If I go to O'Reilly's, it's next door to a Taco Bell, and that means I can get a chalupa. Chalupa. You know what? Speaking of chalupa, I was in Iowa not too long ago, and I don't know what it is for you Iowa people, but like, I got like some Taco Bell. It was like $19. It was like the same meal that you can get for like $9 in Indiana. It was. Stay out of Iowa would be my advice. It's where the Field of Dreams is, isn't it? Kevin Costner. Yeah. Come on now, big guy. I think I just need to buy the longest spool of 1/4-inch copper wire they got, figure out adapters, if I got to get what I got to do to pipe plug that over to 1/4-inch, and go from there. Yeah, let's clean some stuff up. Well, here's where we are. Had to get the heat on these old brake lines off. This one was a 1/4-inch, whatever, and this I got to figure out. It's bigger, but anyway, I think we're gonna have enough room to slide a battery in here, or maybe it'll go in sideways. I don't know. I got to figure out a vacuum line to go into there on the intake. Gosh, I heated that up pretty good. Anyway, there it is. There's what I've been envisioning for a good long time, having power brakes in a 48 Pontiac for, oh, what am I into that? 30 bucks for the pedal bracket and all that shenanigans. Let's go to Junkyard, Jeeps. I think by mid 90s, late 90s, you get into a plastic reservoir. I wanted the metal one. So it was 93. And you can hop in these things and mash on the fat pedal and see if it still does brake stuff. If not, we'll just get a new master cylinder. Sure, 93 Cherokee can't be born. 40 bucks. Oh, crap, that's what I paid for it. Used. And there's some fire extinguisher dust down there. Anyway, I'll get to looking and order some lines and do all that, and then we'll run some wiring into the dash so we can actually, ooh, we gotta put the VIN plate back on. Maybe we'll go right there. It looks like a factory spot for a VIN plate. Anyway, looking good. I'm gonna do a quick fire watch to make sure there's no slow burning asbestos inside this old buddy. Well, we got the master cylinder in and the brake booster and the brake pedal assembly all mounted up. I even got all the fittings I needed, like my 5/16 to 1/4 fitting for the master cylinder for the front brakes, and I got my barbed fitting for the intake to go to a vacuum line with a 5/16 line to the brake booster. So technically we got power brakes on this old Betty. I went ahead and threw a copper line from the master cylinder to the front brakes, which is, hey, we're like 50% there, right? But the big bridge to cross right now is running a copper line from the master cylinder all the way to the rear differential where that junction block is. We're not going to quite mess with everything from the junction block on the axle to the wheels, which I'm sure we will, because I'm sure the rubber hoses are either collapsed or will blow immediately as soon as we mash on that fat pedal. And the wheel cylinders are either going to blow up or they're seized up or whatever that might be. Don't know if I can get wheel cylinders for this car, but I know I can rebuild them, so we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Speaking of burning stuff, there's like a wasp nest on the rear differential right where this junction block is. So I'm going to get in there with a lighter and some brake clean and remedy that little situation real quick, and then we'll flare a brake line and run it where it needs to be, and maybe crack all these bleeders open for the millionth time and get the butt honeysucker, aka fluid extractor, and hook it up and maybe try to pull some fluid out of here. And while we got this old Betty's butt up in the air, we're gonna go ahead and what are we gonna do? Oh yeah, try to get the old brakes back out of it so I don't have two pedals in there, which is a little wonky, but let's get to it. Yes, you might have noticed the gazebo. That's fun, having a good time with that. The reason why I got that up is because right now in the Midwest, it's either 2 inches of rain in 10 minutes or 1,000% humidity. So I'm dealing with both, a little shade and precipitation shielding with that set up right now. I'm so accustomed to working out in the Lord's shop on gravel and shorts and rolling around in the worst possible conditions. I feel a little bashful using that, you know, keeping the sun off me. And speaking of the sun, there she is, which means it's gonna burn hotter than an Iraqi flip-flop for about 30 minutes, and it's gonna downpour rain, and then I'll have to stop and mow the grass for the 7th time this week. But speaking of the heat, I have neglected to mention, and I am also, and equally ashamed of myself, proud supporter of Route 40 Rust and the 48 Pontiac project is Showcase Heating and Air in Morris Hill, Indiana. If you're anything like me, you're outside 23 of the 24 hours in the day that God has given us, and it is hot. But when I go inside, I want it to be ice cold. And by ice cold for me is about 74 degrees because I'm cheap and electricity ain't. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in the Morris Hill, Indiana, the Southeast Indiana, greater Cincinnati area, I don't know, and you have some heating and air needs, call Showcase Heating and Air. Family run business. Small guys that are just competing and winning, going from strength to strength to strength, going up against the big guys, you know, with a fleet of vans that'll be there in 15 minutes. These guys are doing it, you know. Don't take my word for it, because I'm a moron. You know, Google it. Google reviews don't lie. They don't. Check that out. Give them a call if you need any of that stuff, because I do know with how much I'm outside, when I'm ready to settle down, have a ginger ale, and put my feet up, house better be ice cold. Ice cold. I better get to work. It's all this talk of rolling around in the gravel, in the heat, in the moisture. It's not pleasant, but I got popsicles. Well, we're bringing all the important tools to the job, like the big can of Cougar Estrus. We'll need that. Half, 7/16, whatever these brake lines are, and a hammer in case it gets stubborn. Oh, yeah. No, probably should bring. Ow, it's touching me. Quit touching me. Okay. Ooh. There she is. I don't know what kind of critter builds such a structure. And nobody's coming out, so that's good. Ooh. Okay. All right. So that's a win. I don't know if you guys heard of that evil snarling, but we're breeding goats right now, And if you don't know anything about breeding goats, don't Google it, because you'll see images that'll never get out of your head. Anyway. Alright. Wow. Ah! Ah! Seeing as how we're dealing with a rubber brake line now to a hard line, I've upgraded my "this isn't going to go well" toolkit from coup greasers, wrenches, a hammer, and vice grips. Now if all goes as planned, where'd it go? Where'd my brakes go? I said if all goes as planned. I guess that's it. What we're gonna do with our spoiled brake line, a lot like we did with that 1/8 inch copper line for the oil pressure gauges, put a ball of tape on the end. So when you're feeding it through all the gunky frames and holes and nooks and crannies, you're not packing your fresh brake line full of crud. That'll come back to ruin your life later. So we're gonna go ahead and start weaseling this down the frame. And there's a couple holes that it needs to, hat trick itself through, and this is about where the old one was, and I figure we'll need another 18 to 24 inches to really bring her home, on that high note. And I'm gonna have to flare that 1/4 inch tube nut to 5/16 MPT whatever XYZ nut to the wheel cylinder, to the master cylinder, to some cylinder, to something. Need to kind of do a good job at routing these lines. Not that I care if it looks neat, but remember I still got to get a battery in here, and we're starting to look like a moonshine still in this 48 Pontiac. Not a bad idea. There's a rear brake line going to the smaller front reservoir. Not that it matters, but in case you care, the larger reservoir usually goes to your front because you got disc brakes and you got a larger piston and a caliper than the little tiny pistons in a wheel cylinder. Simple enough. But this application, it doesn't matter. But in case we do run front disc one day, which will never happen, we'll keep it the way it should be so we can add a proportioning valve. Not that we can't easily change it, but I'm rattling on. What I'm trying to say is I need to put a 5/16 tube nut on a 1/4 inch line. So you just walk into any old auto parts store and have a chit chat and they'll be able to find what you want. And you're also gonna need a kit like here. You can see this is a bit of a mismatched set. It's an old Mac one that I've had for about 20 years and some pieces from a new cheapy kit because I lose and break stuff all the time. Now, we're gonna go through how to do a flare on a brake line, which I'm sure most of you guys know how to do it, or maybe it's been, 2 or 3 decades since you flared a brake line and need a quick refresher. At any rate, we're gonna do it. So just hang tight and we'll get in there. All right, first thing first, don't forget your tube nut. Just put her on there. You could tape it on there if you want. That way it doesn't slide all the way down. Anyway, get your clamp out and they're marked, 3/16 all the way up to a 1/2. And then you want to get your die, and I'm going to have to use one of the new dies because I broke my other Mac 1/4 inch. It's just one of these guys, and sometimes if you get a little off-centered you can break this nipple off. But the depth of brake line you want to stick out of your clamp is the same as the step on this, which I haven't measured, but it looks like 1/8 of an inch or skosh more. So you just kind of set them side by side and say, yep, looks good to me. Now, put your die. Nipple for, well, let's make sure that we did the right thing. Get your little die press out. Hope you guys can see better than I can, because I can't see. Nah. Whoa, there we go. Give it a little jiggle to make sure it's centered, because sometimes you can start flaring. And you just run her home. Run her home. Get on home. Supper's ready. Get on home. Step one, complete. And now, what that does, puts a little, like, double-edged bubble on it. Pull your die out. Run your die press without the die, just the cone. I got a gear wrench, use it. Got a gear wrench, use it the right way. Run that home. Don't give her all the red beans and rice, because make that flare thin even on a double. Oh yeah. Some of my best work, really. By that I mean it's horrible. Thing I feel like I've noticed about copper since I've started working with copper brake lines, you kind of get like a metal flake when you flare, and I've never noticed with that steel, but I like the copper because it's extremely easy to work with, and it bends really easy. That looks great. Looks great, Nate Dog. So that's kind of what you want your flare to look like. Focus, focus, focus. That ain't gonna happen. Anyway, that's gonna seal up just fine. That's a good looking flare. So we'll bend it the way we want it and, you know, land it on this master. Well, we got the old Pontiac bearing all right now. She's up. Her hot undercarriage is fully exposed to my well-trained hands. But at any rate, I got the front bleeders open right now. I'm sure nothing will happen. I'm gonna go ahead and crack the rears open and start dragging out the fluid extractor. See if we can't get a little bit of juices flowing. Gravity bleeding, if you just do something simple like replace a line or something, works a lot. I use it all the time, especially by myself. You can just leave a bleeder valve open and let the air rise to the top of the master cylinder, and the fluid will come down, and you just keep an eye on it and top it off. But I got to get the old brake pedal out and get these open, and again, I'm sure every brake hose and wheel cylinder is shot, and this is all for nothing, but at least we're heading in the right direction. We got power brakes on a 48 Pontiac for about $40, and no, that's a lie. Whole left-hand thread gets you every time. A little more cougar estrus. I don't know if we're stripping, shearing, or things are happening. Well, the good news is I got all the bleeders open without breaking. But don't let it fool you, because I can guarantee you that the hoses are no good and the wheel cylinders are no good. So don't get excited. But in the meantime, I got to find a clip that went from the master cylinder to the brake pedal assembly from the 93 Cherokee, and it can only be one place. 3 places, that's what I meant to say. Still at the junkyard, in Jared's van, or in my junkyard tool bag. Hoping it's in the tool bag, because I don't know, but I need to find it. So let's go look. No. That's good, Nathan. You're an idiot. Gonna be a nightmare. Look! Found my clip. What other junkyard goodies do I have? Yeah. Bolts. All right. I got stuff. Cool. Well, we're gonna go ahead and expedite the brake bleeding process with the fluid extractor. I've actually never used it for brakes, but I'm gonna assume it would be like the same thing as pumping the pedal, holding, pump her up, you know, and we'll just have we'll start farthest away from the master cylinder and we'll have the other rear closed. We won't worry about the front now because it's on a separate channel, which is the whole point of this brake job. So let's old Wuhan wrench. Can't see what I'm doing. So far, nothing. Probably because your hoses are collapsed, dummy. Looks like there's some fluid. Things are happening. Cool, we're pulling some fluid out. I better fire up the compressor, huh? Well, I'm accomplishing very little in a lot of time. That goat is doing a lot of goat stuff. At least he's having a good time. Anyway, after that short burst of fluid from passenger rear, I haven't had any fluid moving anywhere. So I went back around and rebled the master cylinder. I just blew air through the front lines to make sure there's no obstructions, and I saw a little fluid on the front tire wheel cylinder, so there might be something there. We're gonna go ahead and we'll already hook that up and see if it starts gravitating, or we'll try fluid evacuating it. And I'm gonna double check that new line I put to the rear to make sure I didn't crip it when I was ramrodding it through the frame. There's no crimp in it. I don't know, we'll deal with that. So I already got the front brakes hooked up and I still got the bleeder nonsense. So because everything's going so well, take these drums back apart, take this wheel cylinder off, see if they're flowing. Oh yeah, brakes, brakes, brakes. I like drum brakes. They're a fun time. Come here. Alright. See if we can get this wheel cylinder out. Boop. That's how you do rusty brake lines. Oh yeah. See if we can't get this little girl to flow. Trying to breathe some life into this little wheel cylinder. Look at that. Delco, made in USA. It's kind of why I want to try to save these things. Rebuild them if need be. But this one's flowing all right. Got her cleaned out, and pistons knocked loose, and maybe it'll work without leaking. Well, that's the culprit for the rears. This hose is collapsed, which I called that about 3 hours ago. So we're just gonna make a new one of these, I guess, and rebuild some wheel cylinders. I don't know. Let's keep moving. Maybe at least get a parts list going tonight. Life is good. Life is swell. Life is good. Life is swell. Life is good. Well, things are going okay. Not really. I tore the front drums off, the spindles, the bearings, all that good stuff. Wheel cylinders for a couple reasons. One, I need to know the size and to see if they're even rebuildable. Oh, it's not looking great, but I've seen worse. So the Pontiac's blowed in some pieces. The goats, trying to make goat babies. And here's my life. What's this? This is just the front drum with the bearings and all that stuff. Some drum spring hardware things. This is the rear wheel cylinder off of the passenger side, and this is driver's front wheel cylinder blown apart. I'm gonna assume I could break these pistons, actually make them move. Those look fancy in yellow, so that means they're race car wheel cylinders if you got a four-wheel drum race car. I know it's popular these days. This one, I was just blowing air through the brake inlet out the bleeder to see if it was gunked up, and shot a piston out. So this thing's in good shape, and I know the size. I got a part number. So, oh, and here's the rubber hose to the rear. I'll make it work, but that's all I'm gonna do for tonight, because I'm over it. So we're gonna order parts. That's what we're doing. We're gonna lay in bed, eat avocado. No, eat an avocado before I get in bed. Have wheat bran in bed is what I'll do, and look up parts. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for hanging out on that one. I honestly thought in my heart I could replace a few brake lines and get it to suck fluid and drive this thing around the yard tonight. But that didn't happen, and that's okay. It's what project cars are all about. Excellent news, everybody. We're bringing back the hacky sack. Ooh, that's 2. That's a record. Oof. We're gonna have to stretch. Shut up, chicken! We're gonna have to stretch before we do that. No, but in real news and outstanding news, I got all new wheel cylinders. The 3 brake hoses I needed, all from O'Reilly's. Only took them a couple days, and a few other doodads, and you know, more brake fluid. But I got everything banged out, done, and bled. So we have a legitimate power brake setup on the 48 Pontiac. She's still up in the air. I'm probably gonna button up the wheels tonight, so when it falls, it won't be as bad. But went ahead and cleaned and repacked all those wheel bearings, if you remember those guys. We got, you know, power brakes, everything, new lines everywhere. We got stuff. We got, well, this drum's still gonna explode, but we got things. I don't know if you could see, but brand new copper everywhere. Junction box cleaned out, rubber hoses there, new copper all the way to the front. It's good stuff. And you know, look, we've got a big old fat brake pedal with stuff. And to top it all off, we put a VIN plate back right there. Ooh, a little loose, could fall off, lose my VIN on the drive to the junkyard. Anyway, so that's all good news. I'm gonna throw the wheels back on her because tomorrow, I think, what's tomorrow? Saturday? Yeah. If I get it in time, I ordered a 25-foot spool of 5/16 copper line. There's all sorts of noises happening, like thunder and chickens. Anyway, what I was gonna tell you is, yeah, we're gonna put this cheap Chinese eBay fuel cell in the back. Maybe I'll run it up. I can weld, I can MIG and stick, but I can't TIG. So I might run it up to a buddy at his fab shop and maybe put some little clip angles on here that I can run self-tappers into whatever sheet metal is left in the trunk of this thing. Where are we at? Where are the kittens? The barn cats have ventured out into the junk pile. So we'll put the fuel cell in the trunk, run 5/16 brake line, I don't know, passenger driver side, frame rail, probably passenger side, because I think there's a little bit of an iffy spot there. I'm going to go ahead and plate and pop it out, and then we'll land it with rubber hoses. But I just want to run 5/16 copper throughout the whole car, underneath the car, to be safe and clear the path for some wiring, which will be the next hurdle, because now that we have quality brakes, and hopefully very soon we'll have quality fuel on a half rebuilt carburetor, well, fully rebuilt but with old parts. And then I really just need to, now that it's starting to rain out here, goodness gracious, we got like 3 3/10 the other day. Anyway, if it starts raining, I could just park my body inside the car and start landing some wiring. But I'm probably gonna have to sit down with the kids, watch a movie with a big old piece of cardboard, and just draw my wiring diagram for how I want this car to be. Pretty simple. I could wire this car bumper to bumper on my own, exactly how I want it. And we'll probably put a fuse block over there. I still don't know where I want the battery. I don't know if it's worth trying to do something where it's supposed to be over there, or get rid of this guy and put a... All right, it's raining. It's raining. Windows up, truck. Oh, we'll put this here because I want to put tires on. Let's get out of... Oh no, the old telephone. Goats are doing good. Thanks for asking, everybody. I got a pile of parts. I'll probably save on these little wheel cylinders, because you can get a rebuild kit for $10, and these are pretty cool and not in horrible shape. But we got, these are from the... One thing I did notice, that hoses never came with copper washers. The front wheel cylinders, half of them did. So, but they hooked me up anyway. Oh yeah, we got a good Ohio rain pouring through here right now. Anyway, that's where we're at. I didn't want to end the video with utter failure, but you guys are used to that by now. Figured I'd do it on a high note. Wish the barn cats would come out in the rain and say hi. There's the kids' go-kart, building a hot rod go-kart too. Need some helmets for these kids. They're gonna wrap their noggin around the bumper of a square body Chevy coming around the corner one day. But anyway, that's it. Thanks guys for sticking through that epic debacle of brakes on the 48. But I think at the end of the day, what I really wanted to point out is, go to the junkyard, and you know, those Jeep Cherokees are donors for everything. They're like O negative, not O positive, I don't know, whatever is a universal donor. A lot of good parts on those things, and they are plentiful in the junkyards. And now we have power brakes on a 48 Pontiac. How cool is that? I'm just happy to have brakes. So moving on. Thanks guys.